Hello everyone and welcome back to Apple One-to-One. This is Will. Special little episode today that we wanted to discuss, and that was my top 5 iPad wish list for 2024. Obviously, the big rumors this year are the iPad is coming out with some brand new ideas, updates, hardware, and we didn't get any updates last year in 2023, and people were very underwhelmed, I would say, by what came out in 2022. So I wanted to discuss the 5 things that not only software based but also hardware that I think Apple needs to do to make the iPad a must buy product, and how they can improve their overall status within the iPad universe, and features that they need to add or change that may help people decide that they want to buy a new iPad. So the first thing I want to talk about is multiple users. This is something that already exists within the Apple world, but it's only in the Apple world of education. Here on the Apple platform development, there is actually a feature that allows classrooms to set up multiple users, and that way they can switch between them. This does require MDM solutions and managed Apple IDs in order for this to work, but this can be done now, and that's why Apple needs to bring over multiple users on one iPad. So the shared iPad feature they currently use with the Classroom app is a feature that they should be doing now. Just to zoom in a little bit about what you see here, they have every person here on one screen. They have a recent section, and then they have a guest user. So if you need to have a guest account, I would love to be able to take one iPad and have different users for different app setups, different settings, everything. iPad is no longer a device that is a one-person device now. It is used throughout the home. We use it for our smart homes, and if in the future they come out with something like a docking station that we could store it, anyone can just grab one. So this is a feature that Apple definitely needs to implement with iOS 18 or 19, something that the iPhone does not have that makes it different. Next up is the movement of the camera to the horizontal. So in the current 10.9 10th generation iPad, this already exists. Going down the page of this, you will see the camera has been switched to the horizontal, which is where most people probably use this feature. So I absolutely think that they need to move the camera everywhere on every iPad to be identical, and this is a best option. Next up is the workspace feature. What are we referring to as that? Well, we're talking about how we can switch between apps. How can we view apps side by side? Apple is very contained. Things can't just be free floating around, and they haven't optimized the apps to work that way. So what do? Well, we have app switching. We have 2 apps side by side, which at times can work. A lot of times the iPad versions will turn into iOS versions of it, and sometimes it looks great, sometimes it doesn't. You can overlap one over the other, but sometimes it's very hard to work with that. And they have Stage Manager, which doesn't really work out great for everybody. A lot of people are not a fan of Stage Manager. There are times where I like Stage Manager, and I think that there is an idea there with Stage Manager, but we have to improve it. They need to take some advice from, believe it or not, Windows. I think Windows does management windows very well. They have 4 on the screen. They're very much organized when it comes to managing your windows. So I think they need to improve their workspace features to allow us to have a little more freedom to move around. Next up is a new Apple Pencil. The only iPad related product was a pencil that came out last year that's charging via USB, that does not work charging magnetically on the side. So currently they have the 3 Apple Pencils, the first gen, the USB-C gen, I guess now, and the Apple Pencil second gen, which if you go down the page of what the features are and look around here, you can see that the USB-C is the cheapest one, but it's obviously the Apple first generation is still using a lightning connector, which is so silly. I mean, at this point, I think the Apple Pencil generation 1 needs to be retired. I think that if you're going to buy the Apple Pencil, you should be buying that, definitely be buying that on a discount somewhere or a refurbished one. Don't buy it new. And then you have the USB-C version, which requires you to plug it in and use it. And then the second gen, which honestly at this point, there only should be one Apple Pencil. I think coming out with a USB-C version was silly. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they did. So yes, this needs to be condensed. We need to get rid of the first gen. I'm cool with the Apple Pencil USB-C sticking around. I think there is something for that, but I still think that the second gen is the only option to choose if you were really choosing it. From $79 to $129, it's up to you if you think that's worth the value. And the final item, which is I think what everybody wants right now, is a condensed iPad lineup. We know right now that the iPad lineup is crazy right now. This is the current lineup right now of iPads if you were buying it today. A crazy mess of random stuff. So the iPad 9th generation, $329, has been that price forever. Still one of the best options as far as Apple offers from price. But then you have this confusing iPad 10th gen and the iPad mini. iPad mini, a smaller device, is worth more than the newer iPad 10th gen, which, by the way, the mini has an anti-coating and a P3 gamma display feature that the iPad 10th gen does not have. What's the difference? There isn't much of a difference here at all, except for size and those two things that I found out. Beyond that, they're the same thing. And the mini, for some reason, is more money than the iPad 10th gen. Then you have the iPad Air $599, which is a version that I have. I have an iPad Air in my home, as well as an iPad 6th gen, so I had that model type. And then the iPad Pro, which I'll never buy. This is the current lineup. It's a mess right now, and Apple's got to find a way to condense this lineup to make it look a little more sense. So I decided to do it myself and show you what I think is the right setup. This to me is how I would sell the iPad currently if these iPads were out today. The iPad mini starts at $329. I think that should be the cheapest iPad out there. It's the smallest screen. Anything that's considered a smaller screen, I will never buy something that's larger in size and screen-wise that I think the iPad mini can offer. So I think that should become the new $329 version. I think they should always have that price. The iPad 10th generation, because there are advanced features and it's a bigger screen, $399 for the iPad 10th generation. The iPad Air should be discounted down, $499. I think that is a great price. I think $599 is a little much, but even if you wanted to keep it at $599, that's fine. And then the iPad Pro, either lower it down $100 to $699 or keep it at $799. Obviously, the big rumor this year is they're going to have OLED screens. That is going to be a big thing, and obviously they're not going to sell it at $699. So this is an idea of a lineup that I like, but I don't think 5 iPads is the way to go. I think the mini should still be around, but it should be the cheapest version out there. The iPad 10th generation, which replaces the old 9th gen, you can knock it up a couple bucks because I think there are features that are worth it than the other version that are good. The iPad Air and the iPad Pro, because they both have M1 chips, of course they are worth more value for that reason, and the speed and other random things if you really want to look at it. But the iPad Air, to me, is still the best value iPad. And then the iPad Pro, if you need that pro level experience with Photoshop, editing, things like that. Although I have used the Air with Final Cut for iPad and it works fine. So this is the idea of some of the top 5 lineups. So going back to the beginning of the top 5 things that I think we need to see here is, this is the multiple users, the movement of the camera to the horizontal section, the workspace update where we can update how we can move around our apps throughout our workspace, a new Apple Pencil lineup or a whole new pencil in general, and then condensing the iPad lineup to make it easier. These are just some things that I came up with that I believe they should do. I think it's a great idea. So let me hear in the comments or anything what you think they should be adding in there that we don't see other than the normal OLED things that we've seen. So let's see what happens in 2024. I want to thank you guys for joining us here for this version. Like and subscribe, and I love every single one of you.